Chapter 8. Academy of Magic. A soft chime sounded as Jack arrived in the high tower via the household teleport system. He paused briefly to recover from the vertigo and assess his surroundings. The wide, circular room had many windows. Those on the sunward side were shaded, but still let in a filtered breeze. Those on the other side let in indirect light and a high view of the ironwood forest surrounding the fortress the tower stood in. The room itself had a wide variety of tables and equipment in it. All were neatly arranged, with easels and wax tablets charting work in progress. More advanced projects lay along one side all the way to empty tables without projects along another. Magelight sent up firefly embers from several places, and burning fumes rose from others. All whisked up into air of vortices which channeled it from the room to outside the windows. In the midst of it all a young woman sat on a high stool. She wore a clean white work robe over a closely tailored dress of deep blue. Slowly she dropped small, steaming white rocks from a crucible into a retort with tongs held in hands so pale they had no color to them at all. Glowing symbols above the retort slowly changed color as the pebbles raised the temperature, and she watched intently with red eyes, as devoid of pigment as her skin.
"Hello, Lily,"
said Jack quietly after walking noiselessly over to her side.
"Hello, Jack,"
she said, continuing to watch the reaction with that focused intensity. Her movements and features were very precise, like porcelain animated with clockwork. Her expression did not change.
"Do you need my immediate assistance?"
"I have something important, but not urgent,"
he replied. She nodded and continued her work. He examined the diagrams on the easel briefly before moving to another table and waiting. This table contained a large map etched into the bulk of its surface. Glowing embers and spiderweb traceries covered parts of it, unmoving. After several minutes she appeared at his side.
"What is it?"
she asked.
"Have you been sleeping?"
"I have made sure to get at least 2 hours of condensed sleep a night, as per your suggestion,"
she said.
"Is this the important matter?"
He shook his head.
"It's just, I bring you important things all the time. I don't want you to neglect yourself or feel pressure to do so because of affairs of state."
"We are at war,"
she said simply.
"There are few who are as schooled in the new magic as I am. There are things only I can do. Therefore I must find time to do them."
He nodded again.
"Yes. But as this war drags on into years, we must think about how we marshal our personal reserves strategically, not just tactically."
She thought for a moment.
"I understand the logic of what you are saying. What do you suggest?"
He thought for a moment.
"You could take some time off. Sleep certainly. Get out. Do something."
"What would I do?"
He paused again.
"Jesca used to take you and Bianca out. Riding, to a mummery, or that sort of thing."
"Jesca is queen now. She has not had much time."
After another pause.
"What do you do with your time off?"
Jack looked slightly awkward.
"It's hard for me to rest while that sword is on the loose."
"Your mind is not designed for that,"
said Lily.
"Since the primary alteration of the sword was to dislocate your will to its specific end, you will continue to experience monomania for some time. Shall I take a reading?"
"Yes,"
said Jack.
"Please."
She opened a drawer at the end of the bench and took out some headgear. She pressed her thumb to another compartment, and Jack pressed his to another. A number of crystals rose on a plinth. She picked a dark one, placed it in the apparatus that Jack had attached to his head, and moved her hands over the surface in small traceries as she murmured under her breath and continued to focus intently. After a short time, the crystal glowed like the others. She removed it, placed it in the next slot in the plinth, and worked some additional magic over it. Glowing symbols appeared over it and moved gradually between forms.
Your will continues to deviate from its dislocated position. So it is still free, although not showing the same range as a normal one.
She pointed at certain indicators.
The reattachment of your soul to your will continues to be strong. Your animus, as always, is fine.
He nodded, removing the headgear. He also handed her another opalescent gem from inside of his collar. She examined it briefly and handed it back.
Your monitor shows no sudden alterations of will back to its deviated form. No blackouts, I presume?
He shook his head.
Then I do not think there has been any attempts to control you.
Good.
He slipped the opal back into his collar. He pointed to the black bag he had placed at the end of the table.
He pulled a job in Gothica. We got the gourd.
Lily rubbed her hands and a soft glow covered them. She opened the bag and pulled out a simple drinking bowl shaped from a gourd. She placed it over the table and it held there, hovering. With another look of concentration she pulled the complicated silver tracery from it and centered it on the table. She pulled another one up from a stone set into the table and compared the two. Jack watched intently as she identified and marked common strands, removed clear outliers, and blurred deviations. After an initial pass she burned the result into another stone.
The Macheath will is definitely involved,
she pronounced.
But, once again, it is working indirectly. The pattern is nowhere as clear as in your will.
With a gesture, a large subsection of the diagram pulled from Jack glowed yellow and blurred slightly into a shape from the reference gem.
I do not think this subject's will has been magically altered. It was probably just socially engineered.
You don't think it's mastered any of the new magic then to produce a temporary full alteration?
Asked Jack. She shook her head.
Any strong manifestation of the canonical pattern would be immediately spotted.
She indicated the web traceries.
So even if it's adsorbed the biblioteca hexapla it stole, it could not use it in this way undetected.
Unless it has mastered them to the degree that it can thwart our detectors,
said Jack. She nodded.
That is a possibility. If it could focus its monomania on that, much like I have.
I don't think it could exceed your skill,
said Jack. She shrugged.
Its monomania is magically induced. Its boundaries are unknown. Mine is just a factor of my upbringing.
She dismissed the new tracery of Jack and stowed the plinth of stones.
I will refine the pattern here and adjust our detectors. Clearly they missed this. We can increase the fidelity of what they are looking for to match this without, hopefully, generating many false positives.
Thank you, Lily,
said Jack.
What priority should I assign to this?
Well, the job is over. He usually doesn't do more than one every few weeks, so we probably have at least that long. Maybe a few months again.
She nodded.
I will fit it in.
He turned to go, then stopped.
If you take some time off, let me know.
There was an awkward pause.
Maybe I'll take some time too.
She nodded, and the household transporter whisked him away with another chime.